So welcome everyone to the private investor meeting today. This is with Intrommune Therapeutics. We're excited to have them here. I'll In just a minute, I'll turn the time over to Michael and he'll tell you all about it. But just a few notes before we get started. We are going to have about a 20-minute presentation followed by Q&A. If you have any questions at all during the presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat or private message them to me in the chat, and we'll make sure to ask them during that Q&A portion. Um, if I just want to let everyone know that this meeting will be recorded, so we'll send it to you afterwards in case you have any questions or you want to rewatch any part of it or miss any part of it, you will have that. Um, but with that, I think we can go ahead and get started. So I will introduce founder and CEO of Intrommune Therapeutics, Michael Nelson.
Great. Thank you, Skylar. I appreciate the opportunity to present to everyone. I appreciate the time everyone's taken to listen to the Intrommune story. And thank you, Tien, and the rest of the CONNECTpreneur team for setting this up. Intrommune Therapeutics, we're a biotech company, but a biotech company that's going to have revenue actually starting early next year. We develop food exposure platforms for the management of food allergies. That includes treatment and prevention products. I have a fantastic team. With me on the call right now is Nicole Ferris and I believe Eric Berglund. I can't see people's faces, so apologies for that. But Nicole is our strategic director of medical affairs and clinical development. She's got real world experience in food allergy introduction and prevention. She's also worked with FAIR, food allergy research and education, and a number of food allergy trials. So I will let her introduce herself later when she talks about food allergy and why food allergies are increasing as much as they are. We have Dr. Berger, who's worked on over 200 clinical trials, and just a fantastic team of people to really move this product forward. I want to just highlight some of our advisory board members. Sharon Thinchaja is director at the Sean Parker Institute at Stanford. She's been a tremendous supporter of ours. Ruchi Gupta is the name in food allergy prevention. And Dick Ansell used to head up the Global Healthy Baby Initiative at J&J and then Kenvue. So they're all fantastic additions to our team. But together, our team has raised over $8 billion, worked on dozens of drug development programs and hundreds of clinical trials. Food allergies. Probably about 500 million people worldwide are impacted by food allergies, actually have food allergies. The impact is much greater. It's the whole family. But there's 9 foods that cause 90% of food allergies, and those are our key targets. There's also a growing allergy to red meat, to meat, and it's actually an allergy to alpha gal in the meat, and that's set off by a tick bite. So long term, that's something that we want to help treat as well. Uh, Food allergies are a huge and growing problem. The cost to it just in the United States is over 370 billion. In the average child who's affected by food allergies, the cost is $22,000 per year for their lifetime. But it's not just the cost; it's the constant fear, and not just the fear, that the child and person with food allergies has, but it's the fear the whole family faces. Like when their kid goes off to school, parents of children with food allergies actually have clinically higher blood pressure. It really impacts the entire family with just living with the constant fear. Kids get bullied, they get chased around with the foods that they're allergic to. They can't go out a lot of times. They're often sitting at separate tables. So it has an impact on their entire life, and we're really aiming to uh, you know initially or ideally prevent food allergies in the first place. But if you have food allergies, treat them. So we have 3 products pipelines. So this gets a little confusing. So I just want to spend a couple minutes here. Our first set of products and what we're raising most of the money for, we are looking to raise $4 million right now. is our early on set of food exposure supplements and toothpaste. These are products, they contain peanut and peanut and tree nuts for children and infants and who do not have food allergies. So for infants, it's a supplement, you rub it on the child's gums, they swallow it, and it gives them early exposure to food proteins, which we know early introduction of protein can reduce the risk of getting food allergies. That product we're aiming to have on the market the second half of 2026. We need some capital to finish the development, and most of the money is actually for marketing that product. But we do need about $1 million to finish the development of the early on products. The next product I want to talk about is the Intrommune Plus uh, physician base preparation kit. That product, we are manufacturing it. We're in the process right now. That product is actually going to go on sale. Well, actually, we're pre-selling now. I'll show you the website, but we're starting to take orders now. Those sales we expect to kick off next year once the product is manufactured. It's a base paste. Doctors add in the protein that people are allergic to, and the goal is to maintain their desensitization that they built up in other ways, either through the physician doing what's known as oral immunotherapy, feeding them peanuts, or they've gone on a biologic such as Xolair and have some protection to food allergies. And then long term, we are developing a multi-food biologic and alpha-gal biologic. Those are down the road. We're looking for partners. We do expect the interest to pick up in that for the biologics in about a year. But these are three different products. They're going after different bases. The early on products are for people who do not have food allergies to prevent them from getting food allergies. The base kits are compounding kits for physicians to use. And then long term, we will have FDA approved therapeutics. So I want to start with the Intrommune Plus kits because those are the products that we're going on the market now. We have had a study done about using toothpaste for treatment of food allergies, and over 60% of doctors said they were very likely to use it, patients and doctors. Um, a number of them also said that they were somewhat likely. So we're talking about 85, 90% of patients who are looking forward to using a product like the toothpaste. What the kits contain is a fully functional base paste. So if you could see what I'm holding, there's a base paste that's in the kit. The doctor will open it up. They will add the protein that you're allergic to it, mix it up, close the big cap, open up the small cap, transfer it to a tube and then the patient just takes home a tube of toothpaste, and each actuation of the toothpaste is their daily dose of protein, and that will contain whatever protein the doctor wants to put in there. So it could be peanut, it could be tree nuts, milk, egg, whatever they're allergic to, the doctor will put in it. The kits are designed to make it very easy for doctors to incorporate the protein, and then the patients just brush their teeth. And that's really what's key. We're not trying to get people to change their lifestyle, change anything they're doing. 98% of people brush their teeth at least once per day. Um, Use our toothpaste to brush your teeth. It's a fully functional toothpaste. Um, Doctors could even add fluoride into it, and the patients get their food allergy exposure. The type of patients that will use this product, they're patients that have done oral immunotherapy already. So they paid $5,000 to $12,000 per year for a few years to get desensitized. And then the doctor is saying, all right, go home and eat a peanut every day, eat a cashew every other day. And we know within a year, 50% of them aren't doing that anymore, and they're losing their protection. They're right back to where they started. So if they brush their teeth, they're going to keep getting food exposure. And the idea is that food exposure will maintain some level of protection. Should they keep eating a peanut every day? Yes, but most people are peanut allergic. They don't want to eat peanuts. And this is a way of getting that daily exposure right into their routine. They don't even have to feel like they're sick. They're just brushing their teeth. Um, it's a very convenient administration. So it's really great for example, students, people who are going off to school, going off to college. maintain their protection. And then also patients who are on biologics, in the studies that got the Xolair approved, omalizumab approved, they told people, all right, let's switch you over to real food. Uh, and they were able to eat real foods. They came out with the Xolair, and they had really exciting protection from the food. But again, within a year, 50% of those people weren't eating the food anymore, and they became allergic. So they were right back where they started. And Xolair is, it could be $100,000 per year on average for people to use Xolair. Not always covered by insurance either. So I'm happy to take questions on the base paste. We are, we'll take them certainly towards the after I'm speaking, but we are kicking off sales of that. We had a Canadian compounding pharmacy reach out to us. That one agreement that we're negotiating will probably enable us to hit half of our target sales for next year. We weren't even expecting to sell into Canada, so that's all upside to our numbers. I'm going out to demonstrate the product to a physician that is doing a roll-up of practices, has 20 physicians working for him, 20 allergists. That practice alone is very excited about this and is probably going to enable us to hit the rest of our sales target. So just two conversations and we're already hitting our sales target for 2026. The early on products, those are food exposure supplements and toothpaste. I'm just going to hand it over to Nicole for a minute to discuss why food allergies are growing the way they are and who our targets are.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's great to meet you all. So, as Michael mentioned, food allergies have been rising kind of unabated for the last number of decades now, despite a real strong concerted effort to stem the tide of food allergy onset. And there is quite a strong rationale as to why this occurred. So, until very recently, until about 10 years ago, physicians were strongly recommending avoidance of all food allergens until about the age of 3, and only to expose infants and young children to food allergens after that age. We now know that that was really misguided evidence, and there was a landmark study that came out in 2015 called the LEAP study, and it really emphasized the importance of early exposure, so exposure to allergens under the age of 1 year, and that is now thought to be a critical preventative factor for the development of food allergies. And the reason being, it's actually training the immune system. So if the immune system, when it's immature, is exposed to these food proteins or food allergens early on, it actually stimulates the immune system to tolerate the proteins. Whereas if the immune system sees them much later at a much later stage in life, it actually perceives them to be something harmful and it elicits this type of allergic response. So all of the guidance that we had been given previously was, as I mentioned, misguided. And now we know that there's a strong rationale for introducing these food allergens really early, under the age of 12 months, in fact, and continuing that exposure right into, young childhood. So that's one of the key reasons that food allergies have thought to be rising, because everyone was avoiding the food allergen, just thinking that they were doing the right thing, when in actual fact, the reverse is true. There's a number of other factors listed here as to why food allergies have continued to increase. But another one I really want to draw your attention to is the disruption in the skin barrier. So another significant risk factor for becoming allergic to foods and developing a food allergy is having a compromised skin barrier. So that means either really dry skin or eczema under the age, again, of 1 year. And infants often present with eczema before they actually ever develop a food allergy. We now know that there's a really strong correlation between both of those factors. So next slide, please, Michael. So if we look at the population who are at risk, it's actually quite a significant population. Even though all of these infants don't go on to develop food allergies, up to 40% of infant population is actually considered to be high risk. And essentially what that means is they have either developed eczema themselves, they have a comorbid egg allergy, so they've already developed egg allergy, and that actually predisposes them to develop peanut and tree nut allergies, or they have a first degree relative who has what's known as an atopic condition. And that doesn't need to be just food allergy. It can be asthma, it can be allergic rhinitis, it can be atopic dermatitis. So the spectrum of atopy is quite broad. But if a parent, one or both parents, has any of these allergic conditions, it significantly increases the risk of their child becoming food allergic. And actually, you note there, for parents with peanut allergy specifically, that has a 600% increased risk in their child developing peanut allergy. So there is a very strong hereditary component also, but the additional factors, as I mentioned, tend to be egg allergy and atopic dermatitis, also known as eczema. Next slide.
Thank you, Nicole. Uh, so this is what the team and Nicole, you could hear, is really excited about, is we know that with early introduction of foods, you could have more than an 80% reduction in the risk of certain food allergies. And you could prevent people from ever having to live in that fear that they have when they do have food allergies. Um, Spending a few $100s now, and that hundred, about half kids are on Medicaid, um, or similar programs. We're working on trying to get into those programs as well, so the prevention will be paid for. But we know, an ounce of prevention now can save a pound in the future. It's $22,000 per year, per child. So the cost, for saving that money and burden and anxiety, is not that significant. It sounds really easy giving kids the foods that they're allergic to, but parents are busy. Kids don't like the taste of some of the foods. It's just really hard to fit foods into the diet. And we know if you're given peanuts once, like sometimes a parent will say, "All right, let me see if my kid's food allergic," and I'll give them a peanut. If they don't do from that point on, if they don't regularly give them exposure to that food, they actually have run the risk of sensitizing the kid and making it worse, and they're becoming peanut allergic because they've only been contacted once or twice through the mouth. What you don't want is exposure through the skin. Our early on products, we have a product that's going to be peanut only. It could be used as young as 1 month of age. Then as the children get older, we're going to have a product for peanut and tree nuts exposure. And then we have products for toothpaste for older children to maintain that food exposure. We chose these four proteins very carefully. Peanut is the big one that everyone knows about, but the tree nuts, cashew, hazelnut, and walnut, they cross-react with other tree nuts. So the idea is to try to give you universal protection. But the goal here is make it easy for parents to give their children food exposure and regular, consistent food exposure with things that they're already doing. Doctors are already telling your kids, rub your kids' gums, clean their gums. And we turn that into a supplement that children could ingest. This is a busy slide. What I want to highlight is we had a survey done. It was an independent group that did the survey. 90% of healthcare providers, these were allergists and pediatricians, would recommend or trial the early on products. So this is really important. Doctors do not have time to spend. They're so busy. They're seeing so many patients to really go through the process of this is how you do early introduction. Our product makes it really easy. We'll have a QR code in the doctor's office that they'll hand out a flyer. Nicole's put together a lot of material for patients and parents to how you do early introduction, the importance of early introduction. They go to the QR code, they'll purchase it from our website. We'll have it drop shipped to the patient, the child and their family. And we could even share revenue with the pediatrician. And $5,000 or $10,000 of additional revenue to a pediatrician is a lot of money. We believe the total addressable market is about $13 billion for early on. The SOM, the serviceable obtainable market, is about 270 million. In our projections, we assume much less than 270 million. But every year in the United States, there's 3.7 million babies born. 40% of them are at high risk. And if we get into the Medicaid programs, they don't separate out the high risk from the regular children. So that when the Medicaid programs have been offering supplements, they offer it to all of the children. Excuse me. So last, I just want to very quickly talk about our FDA-approved biologics. That is a longer program, 4 or 5 years. We're looking to partner it. It's how the company started before we broadened out into the physician kits and the early on products. Uh, this right now is all upside. We've done a valuation. We had an independent IP valuation done on the company. We're actually giving a discount to that valuation. It assumed no money, no profit from um, our biologic, the FDA approved product. But these could be billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar products for us. We did do a clinical study, or a mega study. It's been written up in the Annals of Allergy. It actually had a really great editorial. Doctors are super excited about what we're doing. We had no moderate or severe systemic reactions. That compares to Palforzia, which is one product that's out there for peanut allergy. It has you eat peanuts, and about 14% of patients needed emergency epinephrine. We had 97% adherence to study treatments. The number one reason why people didn't use the product is we told them not to. They were running a fever. This was a safety study. What's really important is just from brushing their teeth, they had a statistically significant change in IgG4. So we know we were impacting the immune system. And this was in a relatively low number of patients. So even though this was a safety study, we got indications of efficacy. We had 5 patients, we double-blind placebo-controlled oral food challenge. 3 of them were on active, and they went from a mean dose of 16 milligrams to being able to tolerate the max we tested for, which was 600 milligrams. So really great indications of efficacy, really exciting. Nobody dropped off because of the product itself, which is really unusual in allergy immunotherapy food trials. We have 53 patents to date. We're continuing to file additional IP. We have global protection. I had mentioned Canada wanting to use the kits. We have protection up there, and we're continuing to expand the IP portfolio. Just want to give you a sense for our projections, and we're really trying to be very conservative with these numbers. And I know they grow quickly, but we're launching the kits next quarter. We assumed only $400,000 of sales of those kits. We purchased supplies for $400,000 worth of kits, and based on the feedback we're getting, we've gone back out and started ordering more supplies because of the interest we're getting. We think, as I said, we think just those 2 conversations that we're having will get us those 400,000. In the last couple of months, Nicole and I have talked to physicians that represent about 9% of all allergists in the United States. So we're able to get in the door of the doctor's office because we can make physicians money with these kits. We'll sell it to the doctors for about $800 for a year's supply. Each kit is $200, last 3 months. The doctors the doctors can mark it up and charge whatever they want for the patient, but they also get the office visits. They maintain that relationship with their patients, and they maintain their food exposure, which is really key. We're raising money for the early on to finish that development. That product has tremendous potential for sales. I mentioned we think the SOM is 270 million. Even in 2030, we're only projecting 25% of that. So we're trying to be very conservative in our numbers. For the compounding kits, 85,000 people in the last 18 months went on Xolair. If those patients, they should all be getting real food exposure. If they did that alone, that would be $68 million of revenue for the kits. We've only assumed 22 million of revenue from all sources for the kits by 2030. So these numbers are very conservative. Our gross margin is combined of the 2 products is in the mid 80s. We've raised 11 million to date. A lot of that was spent on raising or doing the clinical trial, developing the base paste that's being used in the physician kits. We're looking for 4 million will get us to cash flow break even. The first million we're doing at $1 a share. We're then going to have revenue from the kits, and our price is going to go up in January. We're going to do the rest of that at $2 a share. The $1 a share is a 67% discount to the last time we raised equity. We are comfortable with doing that because we're not looking to raise that much that it's going to provide that much dilution to the team. The first million supports the physician kit launch, and doing an audit, which will allow us to later on do either a crowdfunding or a direct listing. The 3 million finishes the development of the early on product and marketing. Our goal is to provide a 5 to 7x return in the next 12 months and liquidity if we could get that direct listing going. So with that, I want to open it up to questions. Actually, I do want to show, I'm going to stop sharing this. I want to share just so you can see the order page while Skylar, you queue up questions. If everyone could see the order page. So that page is live. We're just doing pre-orders at the moment because the product is still being manufactured, but doctors are able to go to the website and pre-order product. We are going to really push that starting in early January. So with that, let me open it up to questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Michael. Okay, the first question we got is, what is the difference between the three product line customer bases?
Yeah. So for the early on products, those are people who do not have food allergies. They are at risk of food allergies, right? We're going to target the 40% of infants that are at risk of getting food allergies, and the goal is to have them never live in fear. So the early on products are prevention products for people who do not have food allergies. The kits are for we're selling only to allergists and compounding pharmacies. They're for patients that they've been treating for food allergies, and then and they're actually going after the doctors that are doing what's known as homebrew, grinding up foods that people are allergic to and having them eat it. But that has lots of adverse events. These become much quicker and shorter office visits for the doctor because we're not seeing those kind of reactions, adverse events. The biologic, the FDA product, is going to be for patients who, uh, everyone really who has food allergies, and that will be reimbursed. Um, we're seeing really good reimbursement um, for food allergy products in general in the market. So that opens up the door to a lot more patients, and it will be the first product is going to be multi-food. It will be peanut, tree nuts, probably milk and egg. So that product will be for people who have those allergies. Um, the nice thing is the kits help us move along the FDA approval process because we'll know the size of the market we need to do for the studies. We'll probably be able to go straight to definitive phase 3 study. And then Alpha Gal product will be for people who have unfortunately been bit by a tick and set off the Alpha Gal, the meat allergy.
Okay, great. Next question is, can you speak for a moment about your competition?
Yeah. So, on the therapeutic side, there's a product called Palforzia. That product, has you eat peanuts, so patients really don't want to use it. It does get reimbursed, probably, it's been at least a few years ago, it was 16,000, it's probably even higher than that now. Um, we expect patients who've been using Palforzia to switch over to ours for long-term maintenance. It's the homebrew products. So patients who are have been eating whatever their doctors have given them to desensitize them. We expect to switch those patients over for long-term maintenance. Xolair, um, you know, you can stay on Xolair for the rest of your life. It's a painful injection or multiple injections every 2 to 4 weeks. Not likely insurance is going to cover that at about $100,000 per year for the rest of your life. But that's the competition for the therapeutics. And then there's a product, a skin patch. It only works in those 7 and younger. Our efficacy was shown in adults. If you look, that they're up about 500-600% this year. They just came out with top line results for their clinical trial. They're going to apply for a FDA approval in the first half of next year. That's a skin patch. It's only for peanut and only for children 4 to 7 years of age. It doesn't work as you get older. We expect all those patients to eventually switch over to our toothpaste as well. So there is competition out there. We like to think that patients need choices, and we're another choice for those patients. For the early on product, the prevention, it's eating the food. So there are a couple of companies out there that are designed to make eating the food a little bit easier, but you still have to regularly eat the foods. Nicole, do you want to talk a little bit about the competition and what's out there? Our goal is to actually work with those companies, um, have people eat the food as well as use our supplements. But Nicole, I'll throw it to you for a minute to answer that.
Yeah, sure. So there are a number of companies that are working on developing like early introduction food products. So they would be companies that would be developing like peanut in a more appealing form for an infant, or other food allergens like egg. But again, to Michael's point, we don't necessarily see them as direct competitors because we are still going to be strongly advocating that the infants eat the food, but that they would use our product in addition to that because it would actually provide that additional layer of protection. We've also been given some strong recommendations that exposure to our product earlier could be very beneficial. So for the companies that are making products for infants that are food introduction based products, and the earliest they are recommending that the foods be eaten would be 4 months. We're actually offering a product that can be consumed quite safely as young as 1 month, because the dose is somewhat lower and it gradually increases as the child gets older. So it grows with the child effectively. So while we would say they're kind of adjacent competitors, they're not true direct head-on competitors for that reason, because they're recommending food introduction at a later age, whereas we've been given strong guidance from our scientific advisors that our product can safely be introduced much earlier. So hopefully that addresses the question.
Yeah, and actually, I was having lunch with one of our advisors yesterday, and he was talking about the need to go earlier than 4 months. A lot of children um, are at risk or actually have eczema that you can't see until they're a little bit older, but those children are at risk for being introduced to the food the wrong way through their skin. And for patients who are in that 40%, they're at the high risk, they should be getting that exposure before 4 months, before they're able to eat foods. And this enables parents to do that.
Okay, great. The next question is, do your patents apply to all your products or only one to two of them?
Yeah, the patents, the first patent family is basically oral care products plus allergens for immunotherapy. So we have global exclusive rights for all food allergies. Um, the second patent family is how we stabilize the protein in the toothpaste. Even our supplements, though, are cleansing supplements, so they still fall under the category. Um, so we want them approved as supplements, but they're also adding that cleansing ability, because that's what patients are being told to do, rub these um, toothpaste on children's gums. So we want to make sure that it's functional as well as providing the food to the patient, to the infants. So the answer is yes. Like we believe it. We're covered all of our products in the pipeline.
Okay, great. Can you please share your production limitations? How will you manage forecast to production if this takes off too quickly?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our products are, some of the products require, like for example, the pumps. It takes us some time to get the pumps. If we get really desperate, we could airship them, so we could speed up the process. We right now are planning, as I said, we had planning on having the year supply of the kits on hand. Um, we are going to make sure that we have, the margin is so high that it's okay for us to have a fair bit in storage at our drop shipper um, before we send it out. So the plan is to actually have a fair bit of inventory, either raw inventory or fully manufactured product. So that will add costs a little bit, but it's more important. We don't want people using a kit on it for 3 months and then they have to go off. So it's really important for their continuity of care. And we think patients who go on this will stay on it 3, 4, 5 years or even longer. So making sure that we have enough supply is really important. And so we're just going to produce a fair bit in advance. For the early on products, the I mean, that's a good problem to have. We're initially going to sell through doctors, we could control how many doctors we're selling through as we build it up. But we can manufacture the base, the active ingredient to that is the protein, and we would produce a lot of protein at once. It's cheaper to produce it at once, and then we could store it for a fair bit of time.
Okay, perfect. And we have a couple more questions we're going to get to. I'm just going to put up this investor interest poll, and I'll leave it up for a few minutes while we continue with Q&A. The next question is, will insurance reimburse the allergists for their resale?
Um, so that's a great question. In some places in Canada, it is going to be reimbursed. In this case, I'm talking about the kits. But this is a cash pay product in most cases. Uh, the patients who have been doing oral immunotherapy have been paying uh, cash out of pocket. It's one of the reasons why we still want to develop the FDA approved product, because that will be a reimbursed product. Uh, but for most patients, it will be an out of pocket cost.
Okay. Do the allergists also make money on the Xolair?
Uh, Most do not, some do. So that gets into pretty complicated, buy and bill, and they buy it in advance and then they sell it to the patient. Generally, they do not. They just give the injection and they get that office visit, but it's um, or patients I think could start injecting it at home even. So they get office visits. They're not Most doctors are not making money off of Xolair. Some of the larger practices can make a lot of money off of Xolair. But they know that patients aren't going to stay on those products. We've talked with some of the large pharma companies, and they're developing other biologics. They knock down your immune system. Nobody wants to put their kids on a product that knocks out your immune system, which is what Xolair does as well, for the rest of their lives. And this is a way to make sure you get protection. There's no reason why you can't use both products at the same time too.
Could I add one point, Michael, to that? So
Please.
the one all biologics work in a somewhat similar way. The injectable biologics, they are actually not disease modifying, so they actually block the immune response, but it's not disease modifying. So as soon as you stop using it, you start producing the IgE, which is the antibody that actually causes your allergic reaction, pretty much, very quickly once you stop using it. So the big difference between immunotherapy and like these types of biologics is that immunotherapy actually does positively change your immune system to become more tolerant. And so while Xolair is a very effective product, you have to its continued use is required in order to maintain that protection. And as Michael mentioned, that's extremely costly for the insurance companies.
Thank you, Nicole. That's a great point. Thank you.
Okay. Next question is, can you detail a little more about your marketing and launch plan and intended retail partners?
Yeah. So uh, initially, the kits were launching first, and we've already been speaking with doctors. We're going to the ACAAI. We were in the fall and spoke with a lot of doctors. We're going to speak with a lot of doctors at the academies. The Quad AI is end of February. We have contacts to a lot of the food allergy experts. So we're talking to a group in Canada to run a study, a real world evidence study with the kits. They're going to develop protocols. The doctor that I'm speaking with on Tuesday is going to come up with his own set of protocols. Once those protocols are out there, then more doctors will take it up. Um, we actually have one of the top key opinion leaders, one of the top food allergists, who's already started working on his protocols as well. So the more doctors start using it, the more it will build on itself. But initially, we're marketing through physicians. Initially, mostly the large practices and the 400 or 500 allergists that are right now doing homebrew. So it's not a big universe. And we've started talking to a lot of those doctors already. And then the key opinion leaders. But eventually, we will hire a salesperson to go around and speak to the allergists. There's about 6,000 allergists, probably about 5,000 are active. So it's not a huge universe. The early on products, we're going to do an email campaign to pediatricians. The allergists that we've been talking to for the kits are interested in offering early on too. That would be for the siblings of and the children of their patients that have atopy, right? Have eczema, have food allergies, have respiratory allergies that they're treating already. Their children should be using these products, or their siblings should be using these products. And then we're getting a lot of interest from dentists. And for about $400,000 or $500,000, we could get into, we've been talking with a group that's a dental marketing group for about four or $500,000. They said we could get into 1,600 pediatric dentists in within 6 months. So that's the initial plans. Some doctors are asking to have supply on hand, and then so we'll sell them a case of early on products, and then they'll resell it. But for most cases, we're just going to drop ship it. So I talked about having a lot of supply on hand. It's still a lot less than going to the big box stores where you need millions of inventory. I'm just talking about tens of thousands of and then we drop ship it, so it's all one central location. So while for me that's a lot of product on hand, it's nothing compared to having supply in big box stores. Eventually, we would like to be in the big box stores. Most likely we've sold that part of the company, the prevention, to a P&G or a Colgate or someone like that. Um, our initial plans are bifurcated depending on what kind of doctor it is. Pediatricians, there's 85,000 of them. We need to do something more mass market. We're even looking at some AI programs to interact with patients and physicians to go out there. We're also going to be and have started speaking with some of the food allergy advocacy groups as well, and get them to push the product.
Okay, great. Next question is, can you just go direct to consumer without the allergist?
For the early on product, yes. It's for people who do not have food allergies. So, we're going to allergists, we're going to pediatricians, we're going to dentists. For the kits, we could, but we're not going to. Food allergies are dangerous, and we want to make sure that there's someone supervising those patients. Um, we feel very strongly about that. So we are going to the allergist. They're going to supervise their patients. It makes us partners with the allergist. They love the program, but these are compounding kits. There's no active ingredient, but the doctors add in the pursuant to their own protocols that they'll be developing or using other doctors' protocols on providing that protection.
Okay, what is the patient tracking protocol look like at scale?
Yeah, I mean, for the compounding kits, we're selling to the doctors, so the doctors have to track their patients. That being said, we are looking at real world evidence study managed out of Canada. In fact, we have a group out in Canada that's probably going to pay for managing that trial. Any patients who are in that, so probably most of the patients, if not all the patients in Canada, will be tracked. In the US, we are talking to doctors about how can we collect the data, maybe participate in that Canadian study so that we could get the results, really help us with the development of our FDA-approved biologic as well. The early on product, for the most cases, they're going to be ordering from us, and we're going to track which doctor sent that patient to us. So we could give patients power toothbrushes. We could Bluetooth connect to them. We could have an app. All those things are in our long-term plan. So for the early on products, we're also looking at doing some studies and we're trying to get government funding for those studies. But some of the patients will track online. Some of them, if they're willing to do surveys, we'd probably offer them like a free month of product to collect that data, because that data will be really good marketing for us, and it will it'll make us feel good too, showing, oh, we've probably saved 10,000 people from getting food allergies. We want to know that.
Okay. What do you see as the greatest risks to meeting your timelines and milestones?
Yeah, the early on product, the riskiest part is developing the protein, and we've done that already. We've processed the protein. We have the sourcing for the protein, but we do need to hit supplement. So we don't need FDA approval, but we do need to hit certain good manufacturing practices to make it a supplement. And there's a lot of concern about its, peanut and tree nuts. So, doing that in its own separate facility. We have a really great manufacturing partner, um, but it's a partner, right? It's not in our own hands. So that always concerns me. We have a few people that we're talking to as backup just in case. Um, we've done the riskiest part for the early on products. For the kits, they're going to be manufactured, and we're sending all the parts right now, all the different components to the manufacturer. They should be manufactured in the first 2 weeks. They have experience manufacturing similar kits for respiratory allergies from one of the companies that we license from. They've thousands of patients have gone on similar products. So we're pretty confident that the biggest issues there will be if we have supply disruption. But again, we're going to have a fair bit of stock on hand so that that does not become a problem.
Okay. What were the results of your clinical studies for the therapeutic?
Yeah, for the Omega study, again, it was a safety study, but we initially launched it with we went to the FDA and said, 32 patients, let's just check like what's a great starting dose and is it safe to up dose? And it was just going to be 4 up doses, and we had no safety signals, no issues. So we went back to the FDA and said, can we take patients to maximum tolerated dose? Um, and we actually never hit that because we would updose them every 2 weeks. They were essentially being desensitized. We got to the max dose we could put into the toothpaste, and we weren't seeing issues. So then we went back to the FDA and said, can we get long-term safety? And oh, by the way, can we food challenge the patients? So our safety results, I kind of flashed them before, but no moderate or severe systemic adverse events, which compared to the other companies out there was fantastic. These were adults with peanut allergy. They tend to have worse reactions. They also tend not to react as well in terms of efficacy. And we got really nice indications of efficacy. We think this product will end up being very similar to allergy immunotherapy in general is effective in like 80 to 90% of cases. The DBV study that just came out, they showed efficacy after 1 year in 46% of children, if I'm recalling the news release from the end of last week properly. So or maybe it was just a couple of days ago. It was just a couple of days ago. My week is thrown off. They we had really nice indications of efficacy, but it's a small N. So we need to do larger studies.
Okay. How are you going about getting sales of the kits, and how many doctors do you expect to use the product?
Yeah, we've been talking to doctors already. This one practice I'm talking to right now, they're not doing food allergy, but they have a lot of patients on Xolair. They're planning on going into food allergy and putting a lot of patients onto it. But for the most part, we're going after doctors that are already doing food allergies. So there's some practices that just focus on food allergy. There's some doctors that do a lot of food allergy along with the rest of their business. So we're going after the big names in food allergy first. And then we're going after also the big practices. So there's practices with 160 allergists. There's only, as I said, like 4.5, 5,000 active allergists at the moment. So we could hit a lot of the allergists very, very early. How many doctors do I think are going to be offering the product? Because we're also talking to compounding pharmacies. And so doctors that are not doing food allergy now could use the compounding pharmacies. Our goal is, 400 or 500 doctors offering it. Those numbers could end up being substantially higher when um, they see what we expect to be the ease of use of the product and the ability to just order it directly from a compounding pharmacy if they need to.
Okay.
Nicole, if you have anything to add, I'm Nicole is a font of information here, but she's been helping me with the sales as well and the outreach to doctors.
Well, maybe just a kind of a brief glimpse of what the patient perspective looks like. So I worked on the Palforzia studies at Children's Hospital Colorado. I oversaw the research studies that were done on those. I know how invasive it is for these patients to have to consume peanut protein every day if they're peanut allergic. I know how many of patients actually dropped out of studies, and they're, in studies they get a lot of support. They're very motivated. So in the community, that's going to be even significantly higher. So there, if from a patient's perspective, I think actually be able to provide them with something that's just seamlessly integrates into their day, like a toothpaste, and where they don't actually even taste the peanut or whichever allergen it might be. It could be tree nut. The really good thing about these kits also is that they're very flexible, and they're very adaptable, and it's really ultimately up to the physician to decide what proteins are embedded within the toothpaste. So it from the physician's perspective, it has a lot of utility because of that flexibility. But in addition to that, from the patient, it really provides them with an alternative to being forced to feel that they have to eat the food every day, the food that they know has caused them to be really sick, may have caused them to get anaphylaxis. So that's why we see this as really a differentiating kind of proposition, because they're not doesn't require the patient to eat the food that they really despise on a daily basis. And so I just kind of wanted to give you a glimpse of from a patient, and I'm a food allergy sufferer myself, so obviously this is pretty close to my heart. From a patient's perspective, being told that you have to eat something that you're terrified of on a daily basis, even when you've become desensitized, because that innate fear is just there. I think that is, a game changer from our perspective, because they don't. It's just something that they do every day, just brush their teeth. So I guess if that helps at all, just give you kind of the patient mindset, and that's why the physicians, because they're losing patients, that they're hemorrhaging patients on a regular basis if they're on OIT or oral immunotherapy for a long period of time, because eventually they just say, you know what, I'd rather just avoid the food, and I'll just deal with my food allergy rather than trying to actually, treat it. And so we feel that the kits provide that, very seamless, integrative alternative.
Yeah, thank you for that, Nicole. Yeah, Nicole's worked on a number of clinical studies, so that's really helpful. What's also been interesting, and I haven't talked about it, is a number of doctors have asked us, can they do updosing with our kits? And the kits are very flexible. We may actually design a new kit to make it even easier to do updosing. But there's interest in putting naive patients on right onto the kits, onto the toothpaste. So that was really exciting to us that we got that feedback almost immediately.
Okay, great. The next question we have is, what are the FDA requirements that need to be met to get the kits early on and therapeutic products on the market?
Yeah, for the kits, they're compounding, right? Doctors are allowed to compound. About half of medications that they give are actually ended up being compounded in some form. People familiar with allergy shots, they don't give you one shot at a time of each of the five respiratory allergies you're allergic to. They, and by the way, which are way too dangerous for food allergies, but they mix them all together. That's compounding. It's really governed by state law. So for the kits, there's no active ingredient. We're able to just start selling them. And we've spoken with our regulatory counsel. They made sure we had the right labels on everything, and we're good to go. For the early on product, there are going to be supplements. There's certain requirements on the label. We have to meet the good manufacturing standards as well. But it's really just letting the government know this is what we're selling. And the government even allows certain qualified health claims around peanut ingestion. Uh, so there's not a lot that we need to do for those two products. For the biologic, we have to go through the full FDA approval process, and that we're looking for a partner. We expect once DBV gets their skin patch on the market, you could take a look at their stock price. We expect once that happens, pharma companies are going to look around and say, what other allergy immunotherapy products are out there? And it's really just us. And we'll have shown the interest from the kits. And we expect a lot of partnering interest once that product gets approved, which as Nicole said, we're very hopeful that it will get approved.
Okay, wonderful. We have time for just a couple more questions. The next one is, are there any studies needed to get early on onto the market?
Um, no, but to really get sales going, yes, we want to do some safety studies. We're reaching out to NIAID and NIH to see if they'll fund some studies. The initial safety study that we're looking at doing is relatively inexpensive. It's just using the product for a short period of time. But the study that we want to try to get government funding for would be a much bigger and longer study. There's no requirement for us to do a study to get the product out. I mean, everything in the product is generally regarded as safe. If you're not peanut or tree nut allergic, there's nothing, which this product is for people who are not peanut or tree nut allergic, and infants who are not peanut and tree nut allergic. There's nothing in there that um, you can't ingest. A lot of our advisors are saying, use this as the first product for exposure because it gives you a controlled low dose. So the answer is no, but we do plan on doing some studies anyway.
Okay, and along with that, are there any clinical studies needed for the kits?
For the kits, no, but again, we're going to be supportive of that real world evidence study that we're trying to get off the ground. They will be purchasing the kits from us, so we'll actually be selling into that study. But we're really excited to see that evidence. We can't make any claims about the kits. The doctors are going to be, they each are going to have their own protocols. So, all we're doing is saying this is a way of providing food exposure, but the allergists know exactly what they need to do to expose their patients to the proteins that they're allergic to.
Okay, wonderful. I think that was the last of the questions. So if anyone has any other questions, feel free to stay on and you can just ask them to Michael directly. But I just want to remind everyone that this was recorded so that we will make sure it gets out to you if you want to rewatch any part of it or see the deck or have any questions. We'll also be making an introduction to you and Michael via email so you can connect with him there. But if you have any other questions, like I said, feel free to stay on. Otherwise, we can end it here. Thank you so much, Michael and Nicole, for the presentation today. Um, and then, yeah, I hope everyone has a great weekend, great Christmas next week.
Right. Thank you, Skylar. Thank you for moderating.
Of
Appreciate
course.
everyone's time.